Hello and welcome to the Global Travel Channel podcast show. I'm your host, Mark Philpott, and if you're a regular visitor to the show, welcome back. It's great to have your loyalty. If you're a newbie to the show, welcome. I hope you enjoy this particular episode and check out all the others that we have at www.globaltravelchannel.com. Surprise holidays. Doesn't that sound like a cool thing? Well, my guest today organises those for people, and we're going to talk about that and a whole lot more about travel. So let's welcome to the Global Travel Channel podcast show, Ronda Wright. Ronda, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
How are you going today?
I'm doing great. Doing great.
It's actually nighttime, isn't it, over there in your part of the world? So
It is.
Have you had a nice day today?
I did. I've been preparing to go to Ecuador. I leave tomorrow.
Whoa, good. We can talk about that as well. That's fantastic. Now, for the sake of all my listeners out there in the world, whereabouts are we talking to you from? Where are you in the world today?
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia, over in the U.S.
Oh, beautiful. Down in the south.
Yes, the lovely South.
Has the cold weather rolled in yet?
It has, and I'm so shocked because I had been in California and enjoying that nice weather, and I got back to Georgia, and I was surprised at how chilly it was.
Well, it doesn't take too long to adapt when you throw a few sweaters on, does it?
That's right. That's right.
Now, is this the first time you've been on a podcast show?
Yes, it is. So thank you for allowing me my first time.
Well, you're very welcome, and I just want you to know that I'm going to make it as easy and as nice for you as possible, so just sit back and relax and enjoy the journey.
Okay, I will.
Now, I wanted to start off by having a little bit of fun, so I thought, okay, I've done a little bit of homework on you as a person, and I always try to find out what kind of makes my guest gravitate towards the world of travel. And just recently, I've done a little fun thing with all my guests on the show and found out what star sign they are, because I wanted to know whether star signs are something that drive us when it comes to travel. So I want to try and guess your star sign. Is that okay with you?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, I reckon you're a Sagittarius.
That's absolutely right.
Now, we don't know each other. We haven't spoken before today. I've only just invited you on the show, so that wasn't pre-planned or anything. And I nailed it. So isn't that amazing, huh? We got Sagittarius, another Sagittarius on the show. Well, it's nice to have a Sagittarius on the show, and we know all about Sagittarius on the show because they just love to travel. They love to travel. So that's great. Now, the other thing that I do is I also offer you the opportunity to dedicate your episode to someone special in your life. So who would you like to dedicate your show to today?
Oh, that's pretty awesome. I'd like to dedicate it to my little sister. It's actually her birthday today.
Oh, fantastic. What's your sister's name?
Faith. So
Faith.
Happy birthday, Faith.
We should all sing Faith a song. So happy birthday, Faith. And, well, that's lovely because this is something that she'll be able to have as a little memento now of a sister doing a podcast show.
Absolutely. That'll be nice for her.
Now, you're in Atlanta these days, but you haven't always been in Atlanta. Where are you from originally?
I'm originally from this small town right outside of Augusta, Georgia. So a lot of people know Augusta because of the Masters. Big golf tournament.
Oh, yes.
Yes. So I'm from a little small town outside of there called Waynesboro. And that's where I grew up. Like, you probably have never heard of Waynesboro. But
I haven't heard of Waynesboro, but I have actually been to Augusta. So I must have almost driven past your place.
You may possibly have. Absolutely.
So what's famous about your little town? Tell us about your little town. What's so famous about it?
Oh, it's called the bird dog capital of the world.
The bird dog capital of the world?
A bird dog is a hunting dog. So there's a lot of hunting and fishing and a very outdoorsy way of life. And that's some of the stuff I grew up doing, hunting and fishing.
That's fantastic.
Shooting birds. And
that must have been a lot of fun growing up doing that sort of outdoorsy stuff.
Yeah, you learn a lot. And, you know, it's interesting because you pick up a lot of skills that you don't really realize until you're much older that everyone else doesn't have.
Yeah, amazing. Now, you're in Atlanta tonight, and we were just talking before we started recording about the busy airport. It's one of the busiest airports in the United States, Atlanta International. What if someone was coming to visit the United States? Why do you think they should put Atlanta on their travel itinerary? What are some of the highlights of coming to Atlanta these days?
Oh, so I think in Atlanta, it's just such a diverse space in terms of what you can do and how you can spend your time. So I feel like if you're coming with a family, you've got the zoo, you've got one of the larger aquariums in the U.S., very nice. You've also have things like Six Flags. And if you were not with a family, there's all types of nightlife and fun evening events. There's always some type of show or concert or local acts performing. So it's just a hotbed of a lot of different things going on. So whether you're with family, without, single, with friends, there's
Hmm.
always going to be something going on.
Hmm. I like Atlanta. I've been there a few times, and I actually went there for work a couple of times, and I enjoyed the diversity that Atlanta has. And granted, that was a few years ago, but I'm sure that it's only grown in stature since then as well.
Yes,
Okay, cool.
absolutely.
Now, I was really excited to talk to you today because you have done a lot of travel and you've got a lot of different travel experiences, and now you've started a travel company. So I guess it all comes together under that Sagittarius banner. But let's go back to the beginning, because when you were in 11th grade, you had your first international travel experience, and that was as a softball player. So why don't you tell us about that? Where did you go to?
Yeah, I went to Amsterdam. So, the area I grew up is very small. It may be about 23,000 people or something like that. So, it's definitely a more rural area. So, a lot of, mid-class families, very humble way of life, if you will. So, just not a lot of opportunity to get out and about, and certainly not going out of the country. Most families weren't on a routine basis. So I was actually recruited to be a part of this statewide softball team. I guess they had some recruits at a game where I performed especially well, stood out to them, and I started practicing with the team, and we spent a summer over in Amsterdam playing a number of local teams in that area. So we got beat up really bad by some German teams and a lot of the teams that we played, but it was great. It was my first time leaving the country, getting a chance to just experience some other cultures and how people live, the food they eat, and I was in the 11th grade. So for me, that was just, like, wow, just
Yeah,
amazing.
that must have been incredible. Now, I'm sitting down here, I'm a New Zealander, but I'm sitting in Australia talking to you today. And when you talk about the word softball, I find that kind of strange coming from an American, because we think you guys only play baseball. So how come it was softball for you?
Well, so in the US, they call the women's, I guess, league of baseball softball. So
Ah,
it started off, instead of overhand pitches, it was underhand pitches.
right,
But
right.
that since evolved into what's called fast pitch softball. So it's still an underhand pitch, but
Mm,
there's a wind up prior to pitching to
yeah.
kind of simulate a faster approach.
Okay.
So that's what I was playing, fast pitch
S
softball.
Fast pitch softball. Okay. So should we be putting out the old equality sign here and saying, "Hey, we got to get women into baseball and start calling it baseball," or what? What's going
we
on here?
yeah, we could, because hey, it's all the same. We're all the same aspects in theory of the game.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So tell us about that trip to Amsterdam. It was the first time outside the United States of America. That must have been a real eye-opening experience for you as a young person as well.
Oh, absolutely. I remember going to a lot of museums. This was outside of our softball time and practice time, but going to a lot of museums, I can remember just walking along the streets and canals in Amsterdam. And it was just interesting, just, kind of being a part of everything that was happening. People riding bikes, people selling flowers. I mean, it was just all very eye-opening, for a young Rhonda
Mm,
from a small town.
mm.
I also remember having some chicken once that was not quite like the chicken that I was accustomed to eating, but it helped me to start understanding, that yes, this is chicken, but there's different ways of preparing chicken. You can expect different things when you're in certain areas. Because remember, at that point, most people that I was around most of my life were like me. And
Mm,
they ate
mm,
the food the same way and it looked the same. If I asked for
mm,
chicken, it was probably going to be a piece of fried chicken,
mm, mm.
not prepared some different way or not cooked the way I was used to it being cooked. So,
So,
yeah.
so the food was something that you identified quickly as something that was different. What about the architecture and the history associated with walking around a city like Amsterdam?
Oh, absolutely. I am a lover of history, and I have two teachers from high school that really help instill the love of history in me. And so, being able to see some of the areas that we talked about, seeing some of the artists that in their work that you usually just hear portrayed on TV or in movies, I mean, it really felt like, wow, all of this is right here at my fingertips. And I
Mm,
think, that experience, going to Europe is one of my favorite places to go, and it's because of the history there and just the brevity of the buildings and what you're seeing and the streets that you're walking. And I think, that first experience in Amsterdam really kind of opened my eyes to wow, this stuff is real. Like, not
mm.
that you didn't think it, but it's more than just what you read in the book.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, back in the 11th grade, what was the dream in life? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, so I wanted to make movies for Disney.
Mm,
I wanted to be an Imagineer
mm,
at that point in time.
mm. And what inspired that?
I was very interested in engineering, which I did become an engineer, just not an Imagineer.
Mm,
I was very interested in engineering. Um, I was always the type of person that wanted to understand how something worked. My mom always told me that every watch that she bought, I took it apart by the next day, trying to figure out how it worked inside.
mm.
Um, I've just always liked that, and I had a certain affinity for computers and design, and I thought that was something that was really interesting.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, you've got to say that engineers do have an imagination as well. They have to, right, to be
Oh,
successful as an
absolutely.
engineer. Yeah, for sure. So that trip to Amsterdam, did you go with? Were your fellow players in your team? Were they from the same geographical area as you in the US, or was it from all over the US?
Our team was from all over Georgia, so they were all from Georgia, but from different areas.
Mm, mm. And did you
Yes.
remember talking to your fellow players about the experience while you're over there and pointing out things of difference and how you're all, seeing this sort of thing for the first time? Was it a lot
Oh,
of things going on?
absolutely. And I can remember one teammate in particular was actually from Augusta. So we were two that were more closely segmented in terms of geography.
Mm,
And so her background was a lot like mine. And I
mm.
can remember the two of us so many times just thinking, wow, you know where we are? Um, do you understand what we're looking at? I can remember visiting the Anne Frank house with her.
Yeah, right.
And, so many things that, you know, it just felt like such a privilege because we knew and understood that this was a very rare opportunity for
Mm.
someone from where we're from.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure there was so much that came out of that trip that kind of changed you as a person. Did it kind of ignite a travel bug in you? Did you want to go exploring lots of more places after you had that experience?
Oh, absolutely. And I feel like it helped me to become um, a lot more open in terms of everything around me. And even though I don't quite understand something, that's okay. I
Mm.
still want to go explore it. And I really think it started to shape the person that I became.
What was the biggest learning from that trip? Can you remember back to the time where you got home and you sort of thought, wow, I didn't really know that about myself?
I think the biggest thing I took away from it was that um, I'm a lot stronger than I realized that I am.
Mm.
That I can go and travel in that type of situation to another country where I don't know Dutch. Yes, they do speak English, but it's not an area that, people are going to immediately know who I am and be comfortable with me.
Mm.
And I was okay. And I had a great time. I was more than just okay. I
Mm.
learned, I navigated the city. I was able to get around. I wasn't homesick. I I did just fine, and I came back and I was ready to do more.
So when was the next travel experience after that one?
I think the next ones after that were definitely domestic, like here in the U.S. And I can't remember where. I don't think I got back out of the country again until maybe Italy, or yeah, I think maybe Italy after that,
Mm.
but that was probably several years later.
And that was back
Um,
to Europe again, huh?
yes,
Mm.
yes, because remember I was broke also at that point in time. So I had to wait until I had my own money.
So tell us about the career path. What happened when you left school? What job did you go into?
Oh, so I started in my career for a major brewing company,
Mm.
and I made beer for
Okay.
a number of years, which most of my friends loved
Mm.
because I don't drink beer, but they do.
I
So
bet you're the most popular girl on the block.
exactly, exactly. So that worked out really well for them.
Mm.
But I love that opportunity. And it was then when I started my career that I also began moving a lot. So I've lived in quite a number of states here in the US, and that's primarily because of my career. But again, it kind of went back to some of my learnings from the first trip to Amsterdam.
Mm.
Moving around the country and kind of starting a new life every few years in a new place. I felt very comfortable doing that and striking out on my own and making a whole new community in that new location.
Got a lot of expats that listen to my show, and that whole mobility of career is an interesting subject in itself because I think there's two types of people out there. They're the ones that, like yourself, that can pick up their roots and move off somewhere else and get settled really well and meet new friends and get stuck into the new job. And then there's the other type that struggle a bit with that adaptation of new surroundings. So you're saying you're somebody that didn't find it too difficult. Now you've traveled a lot throughout the United States. You've been to 39 states. You've lived in a number of states. Where were some of the other states you lived in the US?
I've lived in Missouri, Illinois,
Mm.
Texas, um, Minnesota, which is even further north.
Yeah,
um,
that's way up there.
yes,
Mm.
yes.
And
So,
what do you prefer? Do you prefer the warm or the cold
oh,
climates?
definitely the warm.
The warm.
Definitely
Yeah.
the warm. If I
Yeah.
was in Minnesota right now, I would probably have on two pair of socks in front of the fireplace. Yes,
Yeah, it's a lot different lifestyle, isn't it, when you're beating up against the cold.
absolutely.
And Texas was another one. Did you enjoy living in Texas?
Oh, I loved living in Texas. The food was so good. I
Mm.
mean, when you talk about barbecue and Mexican food and seafood, man, I
Mm.
loved living there. The food was
Mm.
awesome.
So, out of
Yes.
all the states that you've visited across the US, if some of my listeners are sitting down now and they're planning their vacation to the United States next year, what states would you say are must go tos for anybody coming to the US, maybe for the first time?
I would say definitely California.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely love San Francisco. It's one of my favorite cities in the world.
Mm.
It's up there with Barcelona for me.
Yep.
So I really, really enjoy San Francisco. Again, it's so diverse in terms of what you can do, and you still have some areas that are very historical mixed in with the new. And I really, really enjoy that type of integration.
Mm. Mm.
Um, Another must-visit place, um, of course, you have to go to New York. I'm
Yeah.
sure everyone says that, but it's like the iconic city of the U.S. And you have to take in Times Square and just walk around Manhattan and really get a feel and see the city and smell it
Mm.
and see all the sights. Um, it's
It is
it's
such an
actually pretty
amazing.
breathtaking.
It's an amazing place, isn't it? And
Absolutely.
I often speak to people who haven't been there, and I say, look, you've once in your lifetime, you have to go and experience that place because there really isn't anything else like it on the planet. There isn't.
No, it's
It's a
not.
it's a very what kind of attracts you the most to New York City? What are the things that kind of compel you to go there?
I think it's the livelihood. It,
Mm.
it's it just never slows down.
Mm.
It can be 2 a.m. and you're walking around, and in some places it can feel like it's 2 p.m.
Yeah.
In terms of the activity on the street, the stores that are open, the life. It's always breathing.
It's
You
got an
know
energy of its own, hasn't it?
exactly, and I
Mm.
love that. I love that.
So, traveling as a corporate warrior, how was that in terms of, did it become very mundane for you, or were you somebody that always looked on the bright side and got the best out of the different experiences you had traveling for your job?
I definitely try to look at the bright side of it. And those takeaways. Every time I moved somewhere, I built an entirely new community. Like my mom, my dad, they always joke with me that I know people all over the U.S. Well, I feel like in some ways I probably do because everywhere I moved, I built a new community at my gym. I built a new community at the church. I built a new
Mm.
community of coworkers, neighbors, friends that I met through the grocery store, or it just became an entirely new subset of family.
Yeah, right.
And some of those people are really like my family. I can reach out on any given day, or hey, I'm stuck in this airport, can you come get me, or what are you doing, I have to come there for 2 days, and I immediately have someone that I know I can lean on and depend on.
I think that's another fascinating thing about travel that a lot of people underestimate is when you go out there and you put yourself out to meet new people and you establish these new networks. It's often misunderstood how often you can actually tap into those networks and what they can bring your life journey. I think that's another fascinating aspect of travel in general.
Oh, absolutely. And even people that I've met outside of the country when I've traveled, just the connections that we've made, and we've kept in touch, and things that I've learned from them, it's pretty profound
Mm,
if you
mm.
really open yourself up to that.
So, did you do the bear journey for a long time? Was there another stop after that one, or
Oh
what happened
yes,
there?
there's been two more stops. I did the beer journey for a while, and then I did the cereal journey. I worked for a major producer of cereals and other foods
Yeah,
here in the U.S.
yeah.
and worked there for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm working for a major beverage company, one
Mm.
of the world's largest beverage companies.
Well, if it's in Atlanta, it's got to be the Big Red, doesn't it?
I know that's so disguising. Yeah.
I've actually been to the headquarters building, so
Ah,
I know
awesome.
I know exactly where it is. Hey, that's an incredible journey, and I'm sure there's a trend there that I'm starting to listen to, and the trend is food and beer and drink, and that's a fantastic combination put together with travel as well. You couldn't get any
Hey,
better than that, could you?
you have to love what you do. You have to love
So,
what you do.
so how long ago did you kind of get the hunger to stop all that and do your own thing? When did that start happening for you?
Well, I'm actually still working
Mm-hmm.
at Coke, but I had the desire for some time to think about my passions in travel and what I could do with that
Yeah.
and what could be a good way to segment into the space. And it's just been recently, over the last few months, that I've actually started my company, The Right
Cool.
Getaway.
Yeah. Now, I love the name of it because it incorporates your name, and it's WRIGHT, the
Yes.
right getaway. And that has a profound impact on you when you actually say that, because you think, okay, well, this lady knows what she's doing.
Thank you.
So tell us about the vision behind the right getaway.
Yeah, I really, I had so many conversations with my best friend about this. Um, I really wanted to do something that was different. I mean, traditionally, if someone's going to open a travel business, then they're a travel agent. Well, I
Mm,
didn't just want to book travel. I want to be able to help expose people to experiences
mm,
and really going to a new city, a new country, a new space and taking it in and understanding, allowing yourself to have an experience so you can take something back with you.
right.
So it's not just seeing, but really experiencing. So don't just go to the Eiffel Tower, if you go to Paris, like
Mm,
maybe I can set you up to do a Parisian cooking class if you like to cook. So when
mm,
you come back, you have a new recipe that you can integrate in with your family.
mm.
That type of thing is the types of experiences that have really shaped some of my most memorable travel experiences.
Now, what I love about what you're setting up is the different components that you're offering to your customers, and one of them is surprise travel. And I kind of sit down and think, wow, this could be really, really cool. So tell us about what this whole surprise travel offering is about.
Yes. So this is the perfect marriage for someone that is ready for their next vacation, their next holiday. They really don't have the time to sit down and map out all the places that they'd like to go, and then what's the weather going to be like in those places, and which one is going to be the best for my budget, and all these sorts of things. Not so they don't just not want to plan it, they don't even want to decide.
Mm,
So I've set up a process where all they have to do is go to my website and go through I say, short but stout survey. It's got a lot in it, but it
mm,
doesn't take you all day to do it. And fill out this survey, and the survey really goes after their preferences, the types of things that they enjoy doing when they're on holiday. It starts to dig into, are they a foodie? Do they enjoy wine and beer experiences? Are they a mountain person or a beach person?
mm,
Just really trying to paint a picture for me of how you like to spend your time and what excites you.
mm,
Then they let me know what their budget is. And then I plan the entire trip to their budget.
mm.
I use all the things that they gave me, and I try to come up with a different experience for them than what they've had before, but using all the criteria of the things that they enjoy doing.
This is a brilliant idea. I'm loving this. This is like I can sit down, fill out a form, pass it over to you, and then I'm off to this mystery destination.
Yes,
Wow,
yes,
how cool is
absolutely.
that? So I guess it takes a specific type of person to be okay with this, because I know that I've done some research recently about how many out of couples and families that women do the most planning when it comes to holidays and all the rest of it, and they get into quite extensive details about how this has got to be and all the rest of it. Are you finding
hmm
that a bit of a challenge when it comes to taking the control away from people and doing that for them?
Yes, it definitely takes a specific type of person
Mm,
to be ready to give up the control. And it's interesting because, even as I think about my own friends, A lot of my friends are just like me. They're like, I want control and I'm gonna do it. But then there are some that just are very like, hey, I'm super adventurous. I'm ready to have a new experience. And I want to try something different. So yeah, surprise me. And it's exciting because for me, you're doing all the work and you're putting it together. The whole time I have a big grin on my face because I can't wait until they find out, where they're going to be heading and what this is going to look like. And I know that they're going to be surprised and I know they're going to have a great time.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. Look, I want to share quickly an experience I had along these lines some
Sure.
years ago. As I went when I was living in Europe, I went to a day out opportunity with a particular European airline, and they got us all to congregate at a particular airport. And we got on the plane. We had no idea where we were going for the day, and they flew us to a mystery destination. And at the other end, everything was planned. There was a lunch put on, sightseeing tours, everything, and then they flew us back to where we left from. It was a fantastic experience because that whole mystery side of it was something that was just, I think you're onto something huge here. I think this is fantastic. And I think that people will really get behind it because I think travel's become, and I was going to ask you about this today, do you think travel's become quite predictable? We all want to go to the same places and do the same things,
Yes.
and yeah.
Exactly.
Mm,
Exactly. And this kind of pulls us out of just doing the same old. I
mm,
mean, there's lists published every year of these are the most places you should visit in 2020, and
mm.
people write down that list and they start taking it off, right? And
Yeah.
it's nice to do something different or unexpected.
So, as
Um,
part of your mantra along those lines, to get people right out of their comfort zones and take them to
yes.
new destinations.
Absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely. Now, I understand that that's not for everyone, so I do offer what I call traditional travel. I know that
mm,
sounds funny, but
mm.
if someone says, "Hey, Rhonda, my wife and I, we want you to plan our Hawaii vacation, and give us some experiences and help us to really take in the islands."
Mm.
Absolutely, I do that, and I still add my flair for I want you to do something where you're going to interact with the locals or you're going to really understand what, culture is like here. So I'm always challenging my clients on that. Um,
Terrific.
but yes, with the surprise travel, it's something that I'm super excited about and just looking to get in front of more people and exposure to more of the population.
Now, talking about Hawaii, I went to your website and there's a magnificent photograph on your homepage of
Yes,
Hawaii, isn't there? And it
absolutely.
kind of made me just want to book a trip because it was such a great photograph. Now, in these surprise tours or trips that you're going to be organising, people, I guess there's no trips to the Coca-Cola factory. There's nothing going to be along those lines.
No, no, no trips to Coca-Cola. Yeah, I don't think that would be very much vacation for most people. So
Okay, cool.
definitely not for me. So no.
Hey, I want to ask you at this stage, how are you enjoying your first podcast show?
Oh, it's great, and you're making me feel very comfortable. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome. I just want to have a shout out to Faith too, because we're halfway through the show, Faith. So just make sure you keep listening to your sister, because she's got some more stuff to come yet. Hey, I've got 3 quick quiz questions for you.
Okay.
Just some quick fire funny things to see what you're like as a traveller. So the first one is, do you choose window or aisle seat?
I am definitely a window person
Why is that?
because I like to open the shutters when we're getting close and look at the farmland or city or wherever we're landing, just kind of take it all in as we're getting close. And I also tend to nod off during flights, and I can kind of get right up against that wall and make myself a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah, that's a good answer. Okay, second one is, what's your favourite snack food when you're travelling?
Oh, nuts.
Nuts.
So, yes. So if
Okay.
someone has a nut allergy, then that's not great for me. But I like nuts when I'm snacking on the plane.
It's a pretty popular answer. I ask
Oh
most of my
yeah.
guests this question, and nuts is pretty much at the top of the tree. Yeah. So Okay, and the last one is what's the first thing you pack when you go traveling?
Hmm. It's probably shoes.
Mm.
Yes, I'm like so I've learned to be so discerning on the shoes that I take when I'm about to go on a trip because I mean, especially if you're going to be doing a lot of walking,
Mm.
the not having a good pair of shoes can like ruin the trip. So,
Absolutely, yeah.
that's so important.
Okay, good answer. Very good answer. Okay, getting back to the travel experience, what in your eyes do you think people get wrong the most when they start booking and planning their travel experience? What are some of the mistakes they make?
I think people don't necessarily take into consideration flight time. If they say, "Hey, I want a 7-day vacation or something like that," and they're going to somewhere that's 6 hours away or more, I don't think they necessarily think about the fact that, oh, there's probably going to be an overnight flight involved or, these sorts of things. So you don't really have that amount of time on the ground.
Mm.
So that's something that I see a lot, especially with newer travelers or ones that just aren't as experienced.
I think that's a really good point. I think also just adding to that, maybe jet lag and the impact of jet lag that has on you when you do a long distance, long haul flight, and how it
Absolutely.
impacts your travel experience. So yeah, that's a really good point. What else in terms of, and I'm kind of thinking back to the days when you first did your trip as an 11th grader until now, and how
Hmm.
the actual process has changed. Around how we book our travel, how we plan our travel. It's much more technology based these days. Do you think that's a good thing? Do you think it's made it easier?
I do think it's made it easier in terms of giving people the opportunity to kind of take control of their own and really feel empowered to go out and do some of these things to make it more accessible. I still think at the same time, at least with some populations, it hasn't translated 100% because even though the information's there and you can go to Expedia or whoever and book a flight to Germany, um, that can be a little intimidating,
Mm.
especially if you don't have a lot of experience in doing that or knowing that
Yeah.
what you're doing is right, or is this a good hotel, or what's going to happen when I get there? How do I set up transport? Like, what do I, there's just a lot of questions.
Mm.
So in some um, realms, it can actually deter a person because um, they don't want to, even though it's right there and they can do it, it's still like, how do I know I'm doing this right or that I'm making the right decision? Which is where someone like myself comes in, where, someone that's traveled a lot. My goal is to help other people and really to kind of be that coach, if you will, and help put together good plans, talk things through, and help them to kind of see their way.
I think it's a really important thing because for people who, like us, who have travelled quite a bit and got a lot of experience, we kind of take it as a second nature thing to do. Yet for somebody who's not so, I guess, experienced in that area, whether it be even with domestic travel versus international travel, it can be
Hmm.
quite daunting, and there's a lot of things that you need to take into consideration, aren't there?
Absolutely.
Mm.
Absolutely. I
What?
even did, oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I even did three quick videos this week. I'll just say I'll give another shout out to my business coach, Demetia Samuels, with the Corporate Hustle University. She's been really pushing me to be visual um,
Mm.
and talk about, some of my experiences because everyone doesn't know, right? But as
Yes.
I've been preparing to leave for Ecuador this week, I just made three really quick videos of things like make sure you set your travel alerts with your credit card company,
Mm.
or,
Mm.
there's make sure you understand what the currency is and do you need to take money from your bank in that currency before you leave. So things that, a lot of people probably don't know about, but, I take for granted because I've just done so much traveling.
Yeah, really good point. So watch out for Ronda Wright on Facebook Live, everybody. She's going to put
Yeah.
herself out there on
Yes.
a lot more videos. What are your thoughts around conscious behavior when we travel? I know we're starting to hear a lot more about this now, and people are starting to be asking questions about, are we doing the right things when we're traveling? Are we looking after the
Hmm.
planet? Are we being more environmentally friendly? What are your thoughts around this?
I think it's a good point. Especially as you kind of look and just think about some of the changes over the years. And even if you just wanted to take the physical standpoint and just looking at some of the major landmarks and changes that have been made, right? Everything from the Sphinx in Egypt to
Mm,
Machu Picchu, and just watching some of the degradation over time. Um, I think it is something to be that we all need to be cautious of and thinking about, and just going that extra step wherever we can to make sure that we're preserving and thinking about how we do that. And I know over tourism, is a topic right now, and it's something that I'm watching very closely, and just trying to think about, what is the right approach, and how do we make sure that we're able to sustain what we currently have.
Well, I think, and I'm just going to throw my 2 cents worth in here. I think that we all have a responsibility, whether it be manufacturers of aircraft and making sure that we are flying in the most efficient, carbon free or emission lower aircraft technology. And as we move more and more towards potential electric propulsion and things like that to clean up our act, whether it be trains that we get on, light rail systems, hire cars, electric scooters. Everybody in the whole supply chain has an opportunity to make a difference, don't they?
Absolutely. We all do. We
Have
all
you
make an
changed your
impact.
habits at all? Is there anything that you've done that you want to share with the listeners that may be different to what you were doing 20 years ago when you were traveling?
Even small things like, traveling with a water bottle,
Mm,
um, which it sounds really small, right? But I mean, it's just one step in trying to help eliminate plastic use and um, additional garbage. Um, Doing things like being very cautious, because I obviously do a lot of travel here in the US, constantly for work.
mm,
So even things like being conscious of reusing towels, and not having them wash things over and over if it
mm.
doesn't need to be. So I think, like how I just manage myself when I'm traveling, and some of the requirements that I'm asking of others is something that I've been very cautious of.
Has corporate travel changed for you much over the years?
In terms of how much I'm traveling,
Well, not only that, but the way in which you travel, the places that you stay, have all those things stayed pretty much the same, or has there been an evolution in that process?
it feels like it's about the same.
Mm,
Um, but well, I take that back, because there definitely was a point in time where, as a 23-year-old, I felt, when I look back at it now, I think it was pretty wasteful. But there were a couple of times I could say that I was on like a corporate jet, and there probably were only a few other folks there.
mm,
Whereas if I would have been on a commercial flight, there would have been, 200 folks that all would have been going to the same destination. So
mm.
I definitely think that companies have reined in their belts in terms of how travel is used. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, okay. Now, on a lot of your online materials, you talk about, or you make the statement you'd like to support others through travel. What do you mean by that?
I mean that I want other people to. I feel very blessed and fortunate that I've been able to have all the experiences that I have through travel, and that I've been able to go to so many countries and interact with locals and learn as much as I have. And I don't think that that's something that has to be um, given just to Rhonda. So I'd love to be able to help support other people as they want to do those things. It may not be on the same scale, it may be one city or one country at a time, but I want to be there to support them in their journey and to help expose them to new things.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I know that it's going to be a success, that's for sure. If you're going to go ahead with that kind of attitude, that's fantastic. Now, you're off to Ecuador soon? Tomorrow, is it?
Yes,
O-
tomorrow.
Okay, and why did you choose Ecuador as your next travel destination?
It's one of those places that you don't hear a lot about in terms of the travel scene, unless someone's going to the Galapagos or unless they're going into the Amazon and they're going by way of Ecuador.
Mm,
So just Ecuador proper or Quito, you just don't. I mean, it's more like you might hear it in a secondary conversation. And I love to do some of the off the beaten path type things. I was originally going to Iceland,
oh, yeah.
yes, in December to try to see the Northern Lights.
Mm,
But I decided so late, the flight paths just were not agreeable in terms of how much time I would actually get there. So
mm,
after that didn't work out, I decided, hey, how about the equator? I always thought it would be interesting to be on the equator and to, just kind of take that in and experience some of the areas that I've heard about.
mm.
So, hey, I decided this will be an easy, short trip. It's not super far from Atlanta,
Yeah.
and I can experience it pretty well in about 4 or 5 days.
What's the flying time down there?
It's going to be 5 hours.
Oh, that's nice. That's just a nice
Yes,
time. You have a little bit of rest, but you're not up there for too long.
exactly. That's
And
right.
where are you flying to?
Into Quito.
Quito, okay. And have you got anything already planned in terms of activities and stuff that you're going to be doing?
Yes, so the first day, we're gonna take in the city itself and do a nice tour around the city, and then also to the Equatorial Museum and to the probably not gonna say it right. I think it's Pinachua crater,
Pina Colada, yep.
and we're gonna spend some time there, and then we have a day trip lined up to Baños, where I'm excited to kind of climb one of the waterfalls and do a little zip lining, have a nice adventurous day in the woods, in the in the entrance of the rainforest area, and we're gonna spend some time over in Mendo as well, which they have a nice chocolate factory there, as
Mmm,
well as a
mmm.
butterfly farm. So it's gonna be nice. I'm really pumped up for this and excited to take in a new area, try some new foods, um, and just give myself a little deserved break.
It sounds to me like Ecuador's going to be one of the right getaways, surprise destinations coming up.
Yes, yes, stay tuned because somebody's gonna end up going there. That's right.
You know what I'd like to do? I've just been thinking while you've been telling me this. I'd like to interview one of your customers when you send them off on a surprise getaway. I'd like
All
to
right.
interview them when they come back. I think that would be really cool.
Absolutely. We'll line that up.
Yeah,
We
let's
will
do that.
definitely line that up.
That'd be a lot of fun. So you're going to be back in Atlanta for Christmas?
Yes, I come back on the 24th. So that's the nice thing about going to Ecuador. I'll be there long enough to have a good time, but it's not so far that I'll lose a lot of travel time.
Yeah, that's good. And is Faith coming over to share Christmas with you?
I'll go down to share it with her. So
Uh, okay, well, you're going to be able to sit around the fire and listen to the podcast show together.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Fantastic. What's the best time of the year to travel in the United States?
So that's sticky, and I'll say why. So in the spring and summer, it's probably the easiest time, but then you're dealing with a lot of other travelers because everyone's traveling then between spring breaks, school's getting out for summer. It's just really, really busy. But it's also better in the winter because so much of the Midwest and the Northeast end up having snow and
Mm,
snowstorms, so there's just a lot of delays. So
mm,
you can't reliably get where you're trying to go a lot. So it's a mixed bag. You'll probably deal with less folks in the winter, but it's a little bit unreliable.
Yeah, be prepared for some delays, huh?
Absolutely.
But that's travel, isn't it? Travel is unpredictable, and it doesn't matter whether the weather's fantastic or whatever. We can also experience delays and upset. And I think this is part of what makes a traveller a good traveller is how they deal with that adversity, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. You have to be ready with your iPad, laptop, a book, something. And you also have to remember that this is a part of the experience. This is a part of what happens.
Mm.
And you can't lose your cool or let it frustrate you too much. I can remember being on a flight that was delayed, and I met this really, really cool comedian from LA. So we were both delayed, and we just ended up sitting down and having a drink. And we've been in touch through Facebook since then, and that's been
Mm-hmm.
years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been interesting to kind of watch his career take off in comedy. And we just met per chance because our flight was delayed.
Yeah, amazing.
And yeah, we found a way to deal with that at that moment in time by going and getting a drink.
Mm.
So, you open yourself up and make yourself available. You meet all kinds of people.
So, looking back over all the years of travel, whether it be for work or pleasure, what of those travel experiences taught you about yourself the most?
Hmm. I think it's taught me that, I think it goes back to some of what I was saying earlier, that it's, we all have something to offer and bring to the table and to the story. And our story actually means something to somebody else. Like even the little mundane things that it seems like to me are so normal and ordinary. When I'm talking to someone in South Africa, it's everything to them.
I like that. Mm. What have you learnt about the world we live in as a result of all the travel you've done over the years? Is it as bad as the media makes it out to be?
Absolutely not.
Mm.
I absolutely do not think so. And, I have this conversation with my family a lot because they always, they share their concern, especially when I travel solo, around just, my safety and the things that I'm doing. And, I always try to stress that, um, some of these places are not as fraught with tension as it looks on TV, or they're not as fraught with tension as places that I've lived here in the U.S.
Mm.
That I also know where to be and where not to be in those cities here.
Mm.
So you just have to remember that everything that you see on TV isn't the true representation. Um, it's just one side.
Mm. Yeah, so true. So 2020 coming up, we have a new decade in front of us. We're putting an old decade behind us. What travel ambitions and plans do you have for the new year? Where you got to be off to next year?
So I am I'm setting up my first two group trips through my company that I will lead. And those destinations have not been communicated yet, but they
Mm-hmm.
will be here in the next week or so.
Okay,
But I would anticipate back to Europe and maybe South America.
wonderful.
And I'm looking forward to finding my way to Antarctica. That's my last continent.
Mm.
And me and the cold, we just don't do great, but I have to figure out how to make this happen, so I can get to Antarctica. So that's definitely on my list and one that I want to put on my short list.
Well, I've had a couple of guests on my show who have been down there, and they said the same thing as you. They didn't like the cold, but
Hmm.
they put themselves out there and they had an experience of a lifetime. So I'm sure you will as well.
Absolutely. And I know, I just know that I'm going to be amazed, and I know that I'm going to be in awe of the
Mm.
awesomeness that is Antarctica.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I can't wait to immerse myself in that.
Brilliant. Well, listen, Rhonda, we've rushed through our time together today. It's been fantastic having you on the show. The Right Getaway is your new platform you're setting up, therightgetaway.com. I'm going to put all the details in the show notes of the show so people can find you and book their surprise holidays online, because let's get people out there traveling the world. That's the whole ambition of what you're doing, and it's the whole ambition of what I'm doing with my podcast show as well. So it's been great having you. Have a wonderful trip to Ecuador. Come back and tell us all about it next year, and come back on the show again, because I'd love to have you back again.
Absolutely, Mark. Thank you so much.
And please enjoy your time with Faith and the family over Christmas. Enjoy listening to the podcast together, and wish you all the very best for the future.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
There we are, folks. That's the beautiful Ronda Wright speaking to me from Atlanta in Georgia about her amazing concept of the Right Getaway. Check it out, www.therightgetaway, that's WRIGHT, getaway.com. And maybe you want to book a surprise holiday with Rhonda. That'd be cool. And I'd love to hear about it when you come back. That's it for this particular episode, but if you are looking for more episodes from the Global Travel Channel podcast show, head on over to our website at www.globaltravelchannel.com. It's easy to remember. There you'll find all of our previous episodes. There's some amazingly inspiring stories on this show. People out there traveling the world doing incredible things, not only changing their own life, but also changing the lives of other people. That's what travel happens to do. Now, you can also download our podcast from places like iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and a host of other locations. They're all listed there on the website as well. So download them and listen to them in your own free time. They're all great shows. Now, don't forget, if you like our content, why not share it with your friends or family members or even your work colleagues? Tell them all about the Global Travel Channel podcast show. The more people we can have listening around the world, the better. Let's get more people out there traveling and having an amazing life experiences. Okay, that's it for me in this episode. My name's Mark Philpott. Until we meet again next time, I wish you all a happy bon voyage.